Hi, it's Robin Papworth from Play Move Improve. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a developmental educator, exercise physiologist, and trainer for early learning educators and primary school teachers. I just wanted to talk to you today about 4 ways to approach a parent when you're concerned about a children's development. I'm going to give you a few case studies today to give you an idea of the realm of challenges that you see as an educator and a teacher, and that we have to sometimes really calculate the way that we approach parents because we're dealing with passionate mums and dads that are really concerned about their children's learning and development. So we're dealing with a lot of emotions when we're working with parents, and it's trying to be respectful and empathetic of that. So I'm going to share a few stories throughout today, and I'm going to give you those 4 tips of how to approach parents when you're concerned about their development. 2 really different case studies I'm going to give you. So one case study is of a little boy who an educator told the parent that she feels he has sensory issues, when we may have jumped to conclusions of that. And then another situation where a child genuinely has an issue, but even I have to be careful of my own scope, and I have to juggle the system to notify parents of that. So I'm going to give you those 2 case studies now. I'm going to start with the little girl who's really challenging her in the classroom, and she's really struggling emotionally and socially in the classroom, but I have to I'm going to show you how I navigate that. So I'm an exercise physiologist. For those of you that know, an exercise physiologist sits between a physiotherapist and an occupational therapist. I've done a master's in autism and communication, but I'm not an occupational therapist. So when I see a child who I believe is on the spectrum, I believe that all her symptoms are looking at being on the spectrum. For example, she struggles providing eye contact. She's very out of context when she speaks. So we'll be talking, for example, about playing in the kitchen, and she'll be talking about fish in the ocean. She is finding it very difficult to follow instructions, both verbal, visual, and us prompt guiding her. She is very quick to melt down, has trouble managing her emotions. That would be, in my experience, of all the experience I've had, I would feel like she may possibly have autism, but it's outside my scope. I'm an exercise physiologist, developmental educator. I'm not an occupational therapist. I'm not an educational psych. So what I have to do, and what all of us educators and teachers have to do in this position, is document and collect evidence as much as we can. That's tip 1. We just collect the evidence. So I write down journal articles of the scenario we've had. So for example, we were imaginative playing in the kitchen yesterday. We were trying to give the doll a bottle. We weren't grasping that concept. So then we were talking about fish in the ocean. I would just document that we were trying to scaffold imaginative play, but we were out of context. I would then collect evidence of when we talk to her, she looks away. She'll give you really split-second eye contact and then look away. I would document that. I'd document how often that happens in the day. I'd document if there's a pattern to that. I also document whether she's creating any social friendships with her peers, and for this little girl, she's not. So I would document that. But I have to collect, in my opinion, I have to collect at least 6 weeks of evidence for that. I have to know that, has she had an off day? At the moment when I'm recording this, it's the start of the year. So is she still getting used to her environment? Is it because I'm an unfamiliar person? So we document all of this first, step 1. Then step 2, we would start to talk to the others around us. Are teachers seeing similar things to what I'm seeing? Is the education support staff seeing similar things to what I'm seeing? We document that. We might then start to look at all areas of development outside of social development. So I would look at her gross motor skills. Now, her gross motor skills were poor. So again, we can see a lot of that happening in children with autism. So I document that. Her ability to focus at mat time is poor. Her ability to follow an instruction as a daily routine that she does 3 days a week is poor. So we're looking at all areas of development, not just social play, and we write all that down. We would then chat to the parents about whether they're seeing anything happening at home. Now, when I ask them that, is it impacting the little girl's activities of daily living? For example, is she not able to brush her teeth? Is she not able to have a shower? Is she able to get dressed and undressed? Is she finding it difficult to eat, finding it difficult to sleep? I really need to see that it's impacting her life. Then we go down the path of offering the parents to see an occupational therapist, or to see an educational psych, or to see and go back to their maternal health nurse with the concerns that we have found. But as you can see, there was 4 steps in there before I even mentioned seeing an occupational therapist, and never with the parents did I mention the word autism. Never did I mention the word sensory processing issues. I was just asking the question, is she able to relate well with her peers, or does she, when she has a play date, is she able to manage her emotions? Is she able to have a shower? Is she able to sleep? I'm just asking those things first. I would never say autism, because we know what would happen. Typically, parents would get right onto Google and away they go. And we don't want to do that. It's outside of my scope. So the 4 steps are, we collect all the evidence, what we see, what the child's struggling with. We then look at all areas of their development, not just social play. We're not just looking at tippy-toe walking and poor eye contact. I see that happening a lot. We see a child who has poor eye contact, difficulty speaking with their friends, and tippy-toe walking. That could be a range of different things. That could be the child is shy and nervous and hasn't adjusted to their environment yet. Tippy-toe walking could be poor core strength, poor gross motor development, poor balance. It's not just autism, so we have to be really careful. Number 3 is it impacting the little girl's daily living? Is it just happening at kinder? Is it happening at home? Is it impacting her ability to learn and grow and develop those independent skills? And then number 4, we then start to talk about occupational therapist, educational psych, maternal health nurse. Because what can happen in the opposite scenario? So this girl, I believe, was strongly evident of having a developmental delay and or autism. What we had on the other extreme was a friend of mine's little boy. She was mentioned by her educator. Now, her educator had all of the passion and her heart was in the right place. But this educator mentioned to the family via text message that your child may have sensory issues. I'm concerned about your child. This is what your child is doing. Your child may have sensory issues. You can imagine what a parent would do then. Parent went straight to, obviously came to me, but went straight to Google to look at sensory issues. Now, when we look at sensory issues online, we see sensory processing disorder, autism. Those conditions pop up straight away. So this parent's straight away gone down that path of worried for her child's development. If I give you a picture of this little boy, yes, he may not like water, but is it a sensory issue? So this little boy is 3. He's tall, so he looks 4 to 4.5. So sometimes when we see them as big, we have more expectation of them. That's human nature. This little boy doesn't like playing in water. He doesn't like the beach. He doesn't like getting wet. He's very ordered in what he wants his things to be. He's particular, you could say. He was showing evidence, yes, that he didn't like water, he didn't like getting his clothes wet, and he didn't like playing in sand. When he would play in sand, especially if the sand was wet, he would shake his hands off and he wanted to clean his hands. You could collect evidence for that. That's number 1. We're collecting evidence for his sand and his water play behavior. Number 2, though, is to look at all areas of his development. He's able to follow an instruction. So he was able to take his wet jumper off, completely redress himself, because that was what was worrying him. He was able to express his needs to his educator. He found an educator. He said, I'm wet. I want a dry top on. So he was able to express himself. When he's in the classroom, he's able to follow instructions. He's able to sit at circle time and focus. He's also able to relate with age-related peers, and he's able to express himself with adults. He's able to do most gross motor and fine motor activities. Yes, he has retained reflexes. So this family's already been involved in the physio, OT, exercise physiology world. We're all working on his retained reflexes. So yeah, she's already aware that there are delays in some areas of his motor development. But to say to a family that you have sensory issues, we have to be really careful because it's outside of our scope. It's not our scope to mention that to a family. It's in our scope to document it, to ask families whether they're noticing these things at home. So if, for example, his water play was impacting his ability to shower and he didn't want to have a bath and he was worried about washing his hands because he didn't like his hands to get wet, If it was impacting his day where he didn't want to go outside if it was raining, then yes, we would go down the path of please mention this to your maternal health nurse, please mention this to your occupational therapist. But we have to remember step number 3 first, which is ask the parents if it's impacting any parts of their day. You can say that I've noticed that we're nervous around water and we don't like to get our hands wet. Is this impacting him at home? Is this a challenge for you at home? That would be the way that I would approach it. But we've got to be really careful that we don't jump from number 1, which is looking for evidence and collecting evidence of what's happening, to number 4. There might be an issue here. So I'm sorry to nag you. I know that it's been 10 minutes of me nagging you, but I hope that I've got the information out there that the 4 steps that I typically go through when I'm concerned of a child's development, it's collecting that evidence across a few weeks of how we're going. It's seeing if all of their areas of development are impacted or just part of their development is impacted, what parts are impacted. Then we talk to the families about whether it's impacting their daily life. Is it becoming an issue for them at home? Is it impacting this little one's emotions on a daily basis? Or are they unable to become independent because of the challenges that they're having? If yes, if this little one is finding it hard to shower, finding it hard to relate to their peers, not sleeping, not eating, then of course we go down the track of maternal health nurse, occupational therapist. But please be careful what we say to our parents. Sensory issues is a really sensitive topic, of course, and we need to be careful that we can all have sensory likes and dislikes. For example, I don't like Play-Doh. I don't like slime. I don't like water play myself. I love getting my feet wet, but I don't like getting my hands dirty. That's my own sensory profile. Does that mean I have sensory processing disorder? Not that I know of. Because what sensory processing disorder is it's impacting your daily life. It would mean that I don't like my hands getting dirty so much to the point that I won't eat anything that's handheld. I won't eat pizza if I'm holding it in my hands. I won't go out and touch the car if the car is dirty. It's not impacting my daily life. We need to stay within our scope. If we're concerned about a child, that's fantastic, but we need to send it to the professionals who are skilled in that area. Occupational therapists, educational psychs. If you have any concerns, please send it that way we don't want to worry parents unnecessarily. But I know that this educator's heart was in the right place. I know that she's passionate and loves what she does. We just need to be careful how we approach it. So hopefully you've got a lot out of today. Please share your comments and your feedback and your ideas below. Always happy to hear from you. Have a fantastic day.